Hey everybody, this is going to be another unscripted Patreon exclusive because I think that this topic is something that would only appeal to people who already are following what I'm into. This will continue on my sort of more philosophical videos like Regress and the infinity paradox, as well as Homestuck and the Self. But I wanted to talk about existentialism as it pertains to Homestuck because I think it has a lot of parallels that are worth talking about. I don't think these parallels are intentional, but it becomes this unintentional critique on existentialism. Homestuck does in many ways, and there's one main figure that is behind that. Now, talking about existentialism, you have to talk about Nietzsche, and this is going to be mostly talking about Nietzschean philosophy as it pertains to existentialism, or in a more simple way, this is going to be talking specifically about the Nietzsche work Thus Spake Zarathustra, which is concerned with Nietzsche's idea of the Ubermensch. Now, if you've heard of Ubermensch, your Nazi shit probably flashed in your head because that was their whole shtick. And Nietzsche was the one who, hang on, my cat's bothering me. Get out of here. Scram you, I love you, but you gotta get out of here. Nietzsche was the inspiration to Nazism. He was not a Nazi himself. That is very critical to distinguish. He was not a Nazi person, but Nazism could not have existed without him. And the Ubermensch was a central tenet to both existentialism as well as Nazism. Now, what is the Ubermensch? The Ubermensch is this fictional idea that Nietzsche came up with that said, since God is dead and we have killed him, we must now take the next step towards our own fruition and shed what has held us back. And this might be very comforting to people, especially those of a sort of agnostic persuasion, but Nietzsche unfortunately had some kind of fucked up ideas about this. Instead of a critique on religion and organized religion, Nietzsche kind of just had the opposite, where he said, no, we should throw out everything. The baby goes out with the bathwater. And he said, since God is dead and we have killed him, we should not only reject this morality that they have given us, but we should invert this morality. We should, instead of saying, like Jesus did, we should, the weak will inherit the world or the meek will inherit the world. No, we should say that the strong people will fucking dominate the world. It was almost, proto-libertarian of him to say. And, this was very appealing back then because this had not been said before, and it was sort of a post-Enlightenment turn that, he would say this. And the Ubermensch was this fictional person that was supposed to usher in the new era of mankind. And he believed that the way to achieve this was to have people reject these notions and start exploiting each other. So Zarathustra is his quintessential example of an Ubermensch, of this man who dominates his surroundings, he dominates other human beings, he acts in himself, he is very prideful. We might imagine Gordon Gekko saying greed is good, or we might imagine John Galt from Ayn Rand, something like that. We imagine someone who imposes his will on the world around him and is not sorry about it. He's a very sort of aesthetic man, if you want to borrow from Kierkegaard. He's very aesthetic, not hedonistic critically, but aesthetic. He cares about the world and worldly pleasures, etc. And this might be alarming to some people because existentialism is very popular these days, and it's very upsetting to learn that this was based around kind of a batshit insane idea, basically. Now, if you're listening along and you're thinking about Homestuck, well, who is the Ubermensch of Homestuck? Is it John Egbert? Not really. He is very exceptional, but he doesn't really rise above anything. He just kind of inherits powers and uses them to execute plans that other people make. He's not a Ubermensch. He's just a guy. Is it Dave Strider? Fuck no. That's idiotic. Dave Strider has a lot of cool powers, but again, he is an ordinary person. He is marred in what Nietzsche would call slave morality, where he cares about the wellness of his group. He is subject to defending himself from predation by more avaricious individuals, etc., etc. No, the person who's the Ubermensch is Caliborn. Caliborn is the Ubermensch of Homestuck. He is the wolf. He is the master morality. Slave and master morality is a different thing from a different video, for a different video, rather. So I'm not going to talk about it too much here, but suffice to say, it is basically slave morality is the idea of, from the old way of thinking, this religious way of thinking that a slave might have. I have to care about my other slaves, I have to be meek, I have to be obedient, etc., etc. And master morality is this ideology of the master who dominates his surroundings, and Nietzsche considered that to be the better morality. Caliborn is a perfect example of this Ubermensch figure because he rises above, he meets his challenges, and he exerts his will on the world around him. This is quite literal. He kills his sister, he bites his leg off, and then he goes on to dominate a very difficult session of Spurb, and he becomes the Lord of Time and the main antagonist of Homestuck. But critically, Hussey kind of subverts this. We could also imagine Caliborn fulfilling a hero's journey. He is called away from his home, and he undergoes a transformation that allows him to reach new heights and new powers that allows him to become a hero in his own mind. He's not a hero in the work. It's sort of an inverted hero's journey, a villain's journey, if you will. But Caliborn is a perfect example of this master morality in action. He dominates his surroundings, he fucks shit up, and he gets what he wants. It even has led to this idea that Caliborn is the true protagonist of Homestuck. But guess what? Caliborn loses in the end. And when he is winning, he's actually kind of repulsive as a person, right? We have a lot of jokes about how Caliborn's misogyny is kind of funny, or he's charming even though he's an asshole. But really, he is an asshole. We would not want to hang out with him in real life. He's very charming as a villain, but he's not charming as a person. In fact, he's very repulsive. He's a repulsive man. He is reminiscent of incels even these days. Incels were not around, as it were, when Homestuck was being written, but he has a lot of traits of being an incel. He's very obsessed with others' masculinity. He's very obsessed with superficial masculinity. He calls Jake a manly man, even though Jake is probably the biggest fucking weenie in the entire comic. And, all this stuff comes to fruition when he gets his ass kicked. He becomes Lord English, and then he gets his ass kicked by Vriska and the House Juju. His downfall is not only his doing, but it is destined, because of just how shit in Paradox Space works. So you can see this rejection that Hussey makes of this Ubermensch figure. Maybe not consciously, but at least subconsciously. And you have this kind of really traditionally almost predatory man, this master morality man, this Zarathustra of Homestuck. He's a joke. He's a womanizing asshole. He is repulsive. No one would want to hang out with him. He's totally antisocial. And Homestuck is telling us through this that no, Nietzsche, you're not correct. You are not correct in your ideas of slave and master morality. Because all these people who would, according to you, have slave morality, they're going to band together and fuck you up. They don't even have to cooperate that hard to fuck you up. And I think this is reflective of the real world, right? We have a lot of figures like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos who, if they don't consider themselves these Ubermensches or having master morality, then other people do. Other people will go up to bat for them and say, no, they're exceptional. No, they're wonderful. No, they deserve to exploit others. I don't give a shit that, Elon Musk stole emeralds from emerald mines or whatever. All I care about is they're exceptional people. Sorry for yawning in the middle of my thing. But they're kind of pathetic. They are. They are very pathetic. particularly Elon Musk, who, he lost his girlfriend, who is now like reading Marxist books in public very conspicuously. His efforts in public transportation, in space travel, in autonomous vehicles are an abject failure. He is the joke of modern culture. He is fucking stupid. And how he still has money evades logic, but he is a complete and utter repulsive man. If you have a brain in your head, you probably hate Elon Musk. If it's not because he's rich, it's because he's a failure. So you have this Ubermensch, this man who, by rights, is fulfilling Nietzsche's ideals of, transcendent being. He's fucking up. He's a fraud failure. He sucks. No one really even likes him. His wife left him. His kids probably... I don't know how his kid's doing. How do you even say that his kid's name? I don't know. And Jeff Bezos, he's pretty much understood by most people, not just terminally online fuckers either. Like, people at my job think he's like an evil man who is bringing back like poorhouses and company script and stuff like that. And these people who we sort of used to understand as dominating the world, these sort of Julius Caesars of our time, these paternalists, they are fucked up now. And we see this through Caliborn too. Even though he's not a capitalist, he is a sort of more diluted sort of Ubermensch. He is a failure, and beneath that, he is deeply repulsive. So you see, Homestuck is rejecting this existentialist notion of the Ubermensch. Now, existentialism is not only about Ubermensch stuff. Existentialism is also about, making your own code and stuff like that. So I don't want to make it seem like Hussey was some kind of philosopher for accidentally rebuking this one aspect of Nietzschean existentialism. Or put in a more simple way, I don't think Hussey consciously deconstructed the Ubermensch. A lot of this is very pretentious, and a lot of this is very tenuous, but I think you can see what I'm getting at. Like, we have this idea, so in summary, we have this idea of greatness in our society, and Homestuck goes out of its way to make its great character a fuck up. Its greatness, all the effort in the world, all of his accomplishments are built on the fact that he is a repulsive, misogynist dickhead. And, he's very funny. And the people in Homestuck who do flourish are people who cooperate. In fact, frame motifs are an explicit empowerment of cooperation. Frame motifs being the combat systems that use more than one god tier's abilities. We see people who talk to each other are very powerful, people who make plans, people who work with others. And even Lord English, who has these sort of employees in the felt, needs other people to flourish. But the felt, critically, unlike the loyalty shown in Homestuck with people like Dave and people like John, or even people like the beta or the alpha kids with Dirk and Roxy and Jake and Jane, even if they hate each other, they'll work together. With Lord English, his employees turn on him on a dime. They are they are transient, rather. They are not loyal to him. They are loyal to whoever has the most power. And that is the nature of power, really, is you only have it as long as other people are holding you up. And again, I'm not saying that this is an anarchist work or something, that Hussey is advocating for horizontal power here, but I think it's important to make a reading like this, because Homestuck can have some pretty interesting themes, sometimes in spite of itself, right? Like, we have this funny misogynist, but if you scratch at the layers a little bit, you can kind of see the subconscious shit that accidentally got baked into Homestuck, and I really like that. But anyway, I hope this talk was fruitful. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that, if nothing else, it was good sleep aid. So thank you for listening.